Hello and welcome once again to What's Out There, the paranormal podcast from Out There Paranormal. And speaking for you on this episode, we have myself, Nigel.
And myself, Juliet. Hello.
Hello, and here we go, back again for another exciting episode. Now, I'm not stringing these together into a series of different things. This is a one-off podcast.
It is.
About a certain kind of haunting.
What type of haunting, Nige?
Poltergeists.
Yes.
Everybody's favourite, the poltergeist. The poltergeist, that's like... I'm not going to get annoyed about it because I decided I wasn't going to get annoyed about this before I started this.
Why
but
are you getting annoyed? You
it's
don't
just,
need to get annoyed.
Everything is like, it's a poltergeist. If it's not a demon, it's a poltergeist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why?
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, poltergeist, for instance, the meaning of the word poltergeist, everybody knows it's of German origin. Okay. The word polter is meant to mean to be noisy or to make sounds, isn't it? Yeah. But actually, the word polter actually means in German to knock.
Does it?
It does.
I did
apparently.
not know
I think
that.
people say it's always noisy, but I read somewhere else
Okay.
the actual verb. I could well be wrong here, folks, and please, if you can put me right, put me right. But I was researching this topic, and I found one that says the actual verb polter means to actually knock, so it's a knocking ghost.
And of course, Geist means ghost or spirit.
Exactly. So it's basically a noisy spirit or a knocking spirit.
Now, knocking spirit.
Yeah.
Okay.
We ain't even like 5 minutes into this, George. We've already gone down that route. It didn't take long, did it?
Oh dear. Okay.
Oh goodness me! I promise to try and keep this clean. No, I don't. I can't do that. It just doesn't. It's just not in my makeup, is it? But poltergeists, they've got this reputation as being this sort of malevolent or malicious or nasty spirits that do all these different things. And there's so many of them about. Everybody likes to throw the label poltergeist onto things.
Well, that's the paranormal thing, isn't it? Everything has got to have a label. And why does it have to have a label? It really doesn't.
It doesn't, no.
You know, when I do my psychic stuff, it doesn't have a label.
No.
I don't label anything. It's spirit. Yeah, I guess that's a label, I guess. But other than that, no.
Well, that describes what it is, isn't it? It's the same as this. I mean, poltergeist, it is. Geist is a spirit. So
but is it?
You
see where I'm going with this?
Yes, you're going down. I didn't actually. I didn't think of this route. So well done you for bringing that one up because that's not in the notes.
No.
Because I hadn't got that. Actually, is it a spirit or is it some other kind of malevolent being?
Yeah, it could be anything.
It could be anything. It's this sort of theory. Is it something that's come across from another dimension that does these things just to be mischievous?
Or is it just a ghost? Is it just a spirit?
Just a spirit. An intelligent spirit. Rather than a residual haunting, it is an intelligent haunting.
Exactly.
But it is just a haunting. But we, in our infinite wisdom, decided that we need to have a label for these things, so we call them poltergeists. And the other thing with poltergeists is that there's this theory doing the rounds that the hauntings occur in stages. And it's not a word I really like to use. Stages to me means it's a set process. It's going to be this, it's going to be this, it's going to be this, it's going to be this. So it's going to start here and then move its way down. Say, for instance, if you're going to say staging for a poltergeist, you could say, first of all, you get initial activity or manifestation of some kind. Then you get an escalation of that process, so the little things get worse, and then they go and focus on an individual, so there'll be a certain person that they latch onto. Then it gets to some kind of peak where the actual activity or disturbance gets really kind of wild, and then it slowly sort of after that then declines.
Or you can have weird noises, moving objects, things appearing, communication, violence, or decline.
So there we go. We've got 2 variations on the theme already. And if you just go and do a Google search for poltergeist, which is what I did before I started writing for this one, you've got 101 different variations on a theme. And there certainly is a process to it. They certainly do follow a pattern would be a better word. Okay, there is a pattern to these things. Okay, and yeah, okay, they start off at a certain stage, if you want to call it a stage. For me, I would just say it's a pattern repetition where they go through the same things. Okay, all the hauntings have a similar theme to them. But then again, if all the hauntings have got a similar theme, can they not just be hauntings
Well, exactly.
with a similar theme?
Well, yeah.
Well, they cannot
exactly.
just be hauntings. Okay, because even the most minor ones you could actually call poltergeist activity. But further down the line, when we've sort of gone through the podcast itself, I've got a personal experience I can share. It's not, it's my brother's experience I can share at the end.
I've got my own experience.
And Juliet's got an experience we can share. And we can both throw a poltergeist label onto those.
Yeah.
But I can safely say that my brother's one, it wasn't a poltergeist, but we can put a label on it because it follows that pattern. Okay. So when I say it follows a pattern, I suppose we should really sort of talk about how the pattern works. So first off, when these things start, it's very subtle. For instance, the initial activity could begin with something as simple as a sense of a presence, feeling something around you. I mean, we've all had that.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It's a common thing on hauntings. You feel that there is someone there watching you, or there's a presence in the place with you. Okay, there might be some subtle scratching noises, and the sounds that can escalate into louder noises like knocks and bangs. Okay, and these noises can increase in volume quite significantly, often heard by others outside of the property. And the source for these sounds is never found. There's often cases where, the Battersea poltergeist is a classic. I probably refer to this quite a lot because it's a case that everybody knows, where the noises were so loud people could hear them in the street outside. So, yeah, it's just very, very subtle to start with, and then it builds. And this is what happens with a lot of poltergeist activity. And I'm going to say it's poltergeist activity because obviously this is what is used to explain it. But to me, it is just haunting activity.
I'm inclined to agree with you, Nigel, to be honest. I think it is just, haunting activity, to be honest. There are other stages as well. The next stage could be that an object might start to vibrate, for example. Perhaps smaller items can be moved around. It's quite common in hauntings where objects can be moved across and reappearing in different places. Items can be thrown. It could be a simple stone throwing to larger items like pots and pans in the kitchen, or big items being moved around inexplicably. We've seen chairs and things in kitchens just shooting across the room and that kind of stuff. There's even been cases where individuals are physically thrown or levitated, supposedly.
There's a classic in the Enfield poltergeist with a girl who actually thrown off the bed. So, yeah. And it's not only that, that's a common one as well. People are in bed and the beds are shaking.
Yes.
And we've heard that before.
Yeah.
We've heard that in hauntings where someone's in bed and the bed shakes.
It's interesting with poltergeists, there seems to always be knocking. As one of the start. There's always knocking to begin with, or scratching. That tends to be a very early sign of poltergeist activity.
Yeah.
Or haunting activity.
Yeah, so we're throwing ourselves into the it's like, is it possible?
Well,
because
this is it. I'm not convinced.
Yeah,
to be honest,
it's hard to say. I think
based on my experience, I'm not convinced.
No. It's like I said, we like to put labels on things, and that's what makes it difficult. And I think if we can get away from this and stop labeling it all as poltergeist and actually look at it and think, well, actually, is it some kind of unusual kind of haunting? Because there's still those haunting experiences happening. Because you get other examples where these things will happen, but you won't get all of the phenomena.
Exactly.
We've been in places where we've heard knocking,
And it hasn't developed into
anything else, but the knocking has been there.
But then what we tend to do when we get that kind of stuff is we then attempt to communicate, don't we? That would be our next stage.
That's it, yeah.
So we'd start perhaps trying to communicate with the knocking responses, maybe sort of stimulating yes or no questions.
Yeah, the classic not once for yes, twice for no, or whatever.
Yeah. Another stage, and the next stage along could be, you will quite often hear perhaps muttering or quiet voices, and these could possibly expand into full speech. And in this process of communication, claims might then follow from the poltergeist saying perhaps that they are famous, or they're a murderer, or perhaps they're victims of a murderer.
These claims are usually false, though. And that's the thing. They're
Yeah.
often sort of done to try and lull a person in and sort of drag them in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Oh, yeah.
that's part and parcel of it. Interesting you said about communications, because there's lots of different subtleties in this. You said one to me as we were sort of reading through the notes just now. What did you just say about another form of communication?
Yeah. Well, they write ghost writing, spirit writing on the walls and things like that.
Exactly. There's a classic example of that is Borley Rectory.
Oh, I love that
Of
story.
course, yeah.
That is the absolute classic. Guys, you all know about Borley Rectory, don't you?
Yeah. And so that is
What
one
was
of the
it?
ones.
Light, mass, or candle? Was that what was written on the walls?
God, there was loads, wasn't
it was
there?
something like that. Marianne
Yeah.
was written.
Yeah.
Oh, it was amazing, Borley Rectory. Really amazing story.
And they often, they'll leave notes as well.
Yeah.
They'll write on paper.
Absolutely.
And leave notes laying about. And the other one, of course, is the classic from the Enfield case, where they'll take someone over and then speak through them, where you hear that young, I think the girl was called Linda, I think. I'm trying to wrap my brains trying to remember all this stuff. Spoke with a really gruff old man's voice.
That's right, yeah.
So, this is the format that they take. The next thing is, like I said, to lull you into this false sense of security, to get in and try and communicate with you. And it's often after that stage that then the activity could ramp up.
That's it.
And get really kind of nasty. So you've got instances where people have been hit, pinched, punched, bitten, scratched.
Levitated.
Yeah. Thrown physically across the room.
Well, you had a situation, didn't you? You were shoved. Do you remember?
At
Castle Rising Castle in King's Lynn.
Yeah.
You were thrown into the middle of a room,
Yeah,
weren't you?
it was, I don't even know how it got behind me, because there was a wall behind me.
That's bizarre.
And it physically pushed me into the room.
I mean, did you feel hands physically
It was like
touching
someone,
you?
2 hands in the middle of your back.
So you felt the hands on you?
I felt them go and then a shove.
So it was like a person did that to you?
Stood behind me and pushed me.
But there was no physical way, because you were leaning up against the
wall.
flint wall.
There was a
weren't
flint
you?
wall behind me, yeah.
So nothing could
get behind me and push me.
Because we were in the dark
Yeah.
in that investigation.
Yeah.
Could there have been any possibility that somebody could have got close to you to do that?
No. I was against the wall. There was no way I could get behind me. There was nobody that side of me. We were then leaving that area, and there was another guy from another team in front of me, Dave. He was filming. I had my back against the wall, and the others were then filing out the door, and there's me and him were the last 2 left. And then obviously saw us going, and then whop.
What was really interesting, because I was with another group, wasn't I?
Yeah.
And you were the second one going in.
Yeah.
I didn't mention to you when you went in, because I'd been in there previously with another group, and I could physically see something very dark. And the way I would describe it was a darker than dark mass.
Yeah.
And it was circling within the middle of the room, and I could see it moving around. And I've not actually seen something like that before. And I was looking at it thinking, what on earth was this thing, this mass, this dark mass? I mean, we were in pretty much almost complete darkness.
It was.
But there was, some people had, little bits of kit and things that gave a tiny bit of light. Not much, but tiny. Just enough. So I could see whatever this mass of energy, or whatever you want to call it, was, and it was moving around within this area, just circling round. And I was watching it with curiosity, thinking, what is this thing? I didn't say that to you.
No.
I didn't mention that to you. But it filled me. My emotional state went from very, very calm to, I need to get the hell out of here very, very quickly. And I did not feel comfortable. And I don't often get scared at locations.
No.
I'm often the idiot that's wandering along in the darkness ahead of everybody else, because I want to see what the hell's going on. I don't scream. Very rarely do I get scared. On that particular occasion, I needed to get the hell out of there. And when we had finished, I was quite relieved to get the hell out of there, I have to say. and then it just seems very odd that you got that shove.
Yeah.
Maybe. Hello, Izzy the ghost cat.
She's
joining us.
Hello.
The meows you hear. But it could well be that I was seeing this energy building, ready to do something.
And then it jumped on us as the next group in. Yeah.
You go in, you get a shove.
God. But then again, classic example of what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It's not a poltergeist, it's just something that was in that room.
Exactly.
And it shoved me.
Yeah.
It's just another incident. So, yeah, because it doesn't follow that format, they're saying that poltergeist hauntings follow a certain format, but could it be just some
I'm not
kind
convinced.
of haunting? No,
Yeah,
it is.
I'm not
It's
convinced of that.
yeah, it's really quite difficult. So, I mean, yeah, I'm sceptical about the way that you can clearly distinguish between these so-called poltergeist cases and hauntings. Okay, and I bunged this onto the ASAP Facebook page, inquiring about what other people thought. Okay, and I got a couple of replies. One of them was from a guy called Peter McHugh, and he said, same as me, he's sceptical about the very notion that we can clearly distinguish between so-called poltergeist cases and hauntings. And certainly the hybrid term poltergeist hauntings is fraught with problems. I doubt whether there are in variable stages in the progression of haunt poltergeist type phenomena. Even if there are general trends, a manifestation in any given case may be rather variable. Indeed, a mischievous wish on the part of someone's unconscious mind or that of an external agency to break the rules and overturn expectations might be a core motivation for these phenomena. So he's saying basically, is it the person there who's actually doing it? So if you're looking at cases like Enfield, was it the girl was deliberately doing this
exactly
stuff?
And a lot of people did wonder that, didn't they?
Because they did say they saw things that they did that were sort of to try and get attention. Or is it the general fact that there is some kind, like we said, some kind of malevolent being there doing it because it gets some kind of thrill out of causing that kind of chaos?
You see, this is when we need to bring in an expert, okay?
Okay.
Our dear friend, Dr. Kieran O'Keefe, okay?
He very kindly answered as well, didn't he, Jules?
He did. And dear Kieran, his thoughts now on this was there is no distinction between poltergeist cases and haunting cases.
He did, and he very kindly offered to give us some examples as well. I dropped him a message sort of say, can we get them? I didn't get him in time for this podcast, but what we hope to do later on is to grab Mr. O'Keefe.
Yeah, look out, Kieran, if you're listening.
If you're listening to this, we're going to grab you again.
We're going to grab you.
We chatted to you before. We want to grab you again and ask you about this and look at some of the specific cases you said and you know, dig a little bit deeper into this because, yeah, we're with you. It's like, it's far too easy to sort of say poltergeist.
Well, it's putting a label on it, and not everything in the paranormal, I think, needs a label. Yeah. Is my opinion.
Yeah, it's like we said, are they just down to the fact that poltergeist hauntings are just normal hauntings that have got a little bit of extra oomph? Okay. Of course, we love to play devil's advocate.
Oh, we do.
We do. Yeah,
we do.
There's always something we can throw in as well. And to make you sure that you've got all the options available with regards to poltergeist hauntings, we'd like to throw another one in.
Okay, so here I come again, throwing another one into the mix.
As we do.
As we do. So some researchers have actually proposed the theory that poltergeist activity could actually be a result of intense or repressed emotions in individuals, particularly young children, or, as you've probably heard, teenagers who haven't yet learned to regulate their emotional state. Now, the most common type of person appears to be a teenage girl, but the person could be of any age or gender. And this is where I want to bring in Dr. O'Keefe to talk about this, because I want to hear what he's got to say about this and any experiments that have been done on this.
That's true, because it's more than he's filled with psychology and
stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely is.
Yeah. And I'm absolutely sure there has been some experiments done on this. And I would love to know.
I mean, they say, sorry, I'm interrupting you, Jules. They say often it's a puberty thing.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, especially with young women as well, when they're going through that sort of stage of puberty where these things happen. So the idea behind this theory is that the subconscious mind can influence the physical environment as a form of expression when individuals can't communicate their feelings. So fact that you can't actually say it, you actually develop this other method of how to use it.
Absolutely.
So, and basically it's a form of telekinesis, perhaps. Or is it a tulpa created by the individual concerned, or the individual actually undertaking the activity themselves in order to seek attention?
Well, a good example of that would be, again, the Battersea Poltergeist.
Yeah.
Because that focus was a person, a teenage female, and the activity with that, Izzy the ghost cat, seemed to centre around Shirley. And we all know that tale. So we're moving on now. We're moving on. And we found another one that also features a young girl as a focus point. What is it, Nige?
I've got to try and pronounce it. That's why you threw it at me, wasn't it?
Of course.
It's the...
You do it to me all the time.
I do it all the time.
It's your turn.
It's the Socky Poltergeist.
Socky?
Socky, yeah. I thought it was Salchi, but it's not.
I was going to say Salchi.
But it's Socky.
Sauchie.
Yeah, Socky.
Socky. Izzy the ghost cat? No.
But you just want attention, don't you?
She does.
Yeah. Excuse us a moment while we just give the cat attention and then we'll return
She
to the
wants
Socky
feeding.
Poltergeist. She wants feeding.
Just a moment.
That's Izzy Cat sorted, and we've also listened to how to pronounce it properly, and it is Socky.
How many times of Google have you played that back?
Socky.
No, it's not Socky. It's Sochi.
Socky.
Sochi.
Socky.
Sochi.
Socky.
Yes.
So for apologies to any of our Scottish listeners, Liz, that includes you.
I know.
We should have got you to
We're
say
rubbish.
this. We are.
We're rubbish.
It's funny words, but it's Socky.
Yeah, that's it.
There we go.
You got it. You got it.
Oh
Go on, say it again, Nige.
no, I'm going to start the story.
Okay, let's not just say it. Let's just explain where it is, Nige.
Okay.
So it's in?
So it's in, it's a town
Yeah.
in the central lowlands of Scotland. It's a quiet little place, and we're going back to October 1960.
Okay.
Okay. And we're going to the quiet residential street of Park Crescent, a place that was about to become home to an 11-year-old girl called Virginia Campbell.
So our young Virginia had moved to Sochi with her mother from rural Ireland. Now, she moved into a tiny little house with her aunt and uncle, and she had to share a bed with her younger cousin Margaret. Her father had stayed behind in Ireland to sell their farm. But to make matters worse, her mother found work in another town that was not commuting distance from Sochi. So Mrs. Campbell decided to live in the town where she worked and left poor Virginia in Sochi. Perhaps worst of all, Virginia had to leave behind her only friend Annie. Oh, her beloved dog. That's really sad, Toby. So Virginia, who was a shy girl anyway, was left to stay alone with her uncle's family and share a bed with Margaret and start school in a new town. Obviously, you can imagine she felt incredibly lonely and quite upset. So, the first sign of any unusual activity happened on Tuesday, November the 22nd, just after Virginia and Margaret had gone to bed. Virginia's aunt and uncle, who were sitting downstairs in the living room, heard the girls call out. And then they heard a noise in their room.
Go to sleep, girls.
Mr. Campbell called.
It's just your imagination.
That sounded Welsh.
Didn't it?
Anyway, a few minutes passed, and then the girls rushed downstairs. And as they did, a sound, much like a bouncing rubber ball, followed them down the stairs into the living room.
Now, the Campbells, the aunt and uncle, thought that the girls were playing a trick on them and ordered them straight back to bed. They went and looked in on the girls a few moments later, and they could hear a knocking sound, which seemed to come from behind the girls' headboard. Thinking that perhaps the knocking had disturbed them from sleeping, they asked the girls to switch to another bedroom. When the girls were tucked into another bed in another room, the knocking sound began again, behind the headboard of the new bed. Virginia's aunt and uncle weren't sure what to do when they noticed, as Virginia fell asleep, the knocking ceased.
So, at tea time the next day, when they were all in the living room, they witnessed a sideboard move out 5 inches from the wall and then move back in again. The sideboard was beside Virginia's chair, but she did not move it. And that night, shortly after Virginia and Margaret had gone to bed, loud knocks were heard all over the house. Even after Margaret ran terrified from the bedroom, the knocking continued. Now, at first, her aunt and uncle suspected that Virginia was making the knocking sounds herself. The family called the neighbours in, but they also heard the noises.
Now, completely terrified, they decided to call in a local minister, Mr. Lund, who arrived at their house shortly after midnight. He heard the loud knocking sound as well and noted that it came from behind the headboard. He thought Virginia might be to blame also, but when he asked Virginia to move down in the bed so that her head was not touching the headboard, the knocking continued. This convinced him that Virginia could not have been producing the knocking sounds herself. He also noted that the headboard did not touch the wall at all, so that the knocking could not be coming from the wall, but instead appeared to be resonating from the headboard itself. Mr. Lund placed his hand on the headboard and the wall. When he heard the knocking, only the headboard vibrated in unison with the sound. While he was in the room, he also observed a large wooden chest full of bed linen rock and levitate slightly, move some 18 inches across the vinyl floor, then return to its original position.
The suggestion that Margaret get back into the bed with Virginia was followed by an outburst of violent and peremptory knocking. Now, when Margaret used another bed in the same room, the knocking stopped for the night, and both girls fell soundly asleep. The following day, the 3rd day of the disturbances, Virginia stayed home from school. Stranger things were beginning to happen. Some china vases had moved by themselves, and a sewing machine had started by itself when no one was near. In the evening, they were visited by Lund, who observed Virginia's pillow rotating some 60 degrees while her head was lying on it, in a manner that it would have been impossible for her to do it herself. Lund also heard knockings and saw the linen chest rock again. Now, on this occasion, the disturbances were also witnessed by the family doctor, Dr. W.H. Nisbet, who heard knockings and a soaring noise. And he observed an odd rippling movement along the surface of the pillow.
On Friday, Virginia went to school in the afternoon. She had been kept from school when the knocking had happened because her aunt and uncle thought that she was too upset to attend the school. Whilst at school, her class teacher Margaret Stewart saw the girl's desk lid rise steeply, although she didn't appear to be moving it. Later, she observed Virginia trying to hold it down. In the afternoon, she saw an unoccupied desk behind Virginia rise about an inch off the floor and settle back down. She went over to it and established that there was no strings, levers or other devices that might have caused the effect.
So, that night, Dr. Nisbet kept watch in Virginia's bedroom before she went to sleep. He observed the same phenomena as the previous night. The linen chest moved about a foot, the lid opening and shutting several times. The pillow rotated horizontally. A rippling movement appeared on the bedclothes, which Nisbet described as a puckering, as if due to traction by an invisible agency. Now, the weekend was relatively quiet. The puckering motion on the bedclothes and pillow rotation were observed on the Saturday evening, and on the Sunday, Virginia appeared to fall into a trance, during which she called out for her dog and her best friend, both of whom had been left behind in Ireland.
On the Monday morning, more disturbances occurred in her classroom at school. While the class was studying individually, Virginia went up to the teacher, Margaret Stewart. Standing to the left of her chair and away from the desk, her hands were clasped behind her back. While Stewart was helping her with classwork, a blackboard pointer lying on the desk started to vibrate and eventually fell onto the floor. Stewart put her hand onto the desk and felt it vibrating, although the desk itself was not moving. Then, the desk began to move in a counterclockwise fashion away from the teacher. She looked at Virginia, who was standing a few feet away. At that point, Virginia started to cry and said,
"Oh, please, miss, I'm not doing it."
The decision was taken to remove her from home to a house that was unaffected by the activities. Dr. Nisbet then requested that two of his colleagues, Dr. William Logan and his wife Dr. Sheila Logan, should visit and examine Virginia. In the new property, all three doctors witnessed the knocks and observed they were evidently not caused by her or anyone else. They described the noises as varying between gentle tappings and, when they were about to leave, violent, agitated raps.
Nobody likes a violent, agitated rap.
They don't indeed.
No. Now, on Thursday the 1st of December, Logan and Nisbet set up a film camera and tape recorder in Virginia's room, where between 9 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. a variety of noises were heard, and these ranged from tappings to agitated knocks. The rippling phenomenon on the bedclothes was also observed, as well as furniture moving around. After 10:30 p.m, Virginia's uninhibited, hysterical talking returned in a trance state. At 11 p.m. that night, Lund and 3 other church ministers arrived to carry out a 15-minute service of intercession, during which some knockings were heard. Several noises were recorded up until just after midnight, including loud, peremptory knocks, a harsh rasping, soaring noise, and a scream from Virginia at seeing the lid of the linen chest rising, all 3 of which were later broadcast on a BBC radio programme about the events.
Here is a tape recording made by Dr. Logan.
Now, although the poltergeist activity did not go away, from this time the disturbances weakened and died out, and was much less frequent.
Virginia was back to normal at school and even had a friend, Elizabeth Brown. In fact, the poltergeist was so much less disturbing that Virginia gave it a name, Wee Huey. Honestly, it was Wee Huey. What a rubbish name.
Oh dear.
Never mind. A few objects moved during the next few months. Mrs. Stewart, the school teacher, reported a flower bowl that Virginia had planted on the desk moved across its surface in the same way as a blackboard pointer had on a previous occasion.
Now, all these phenomena, to be well attested, coming from credible witnesses. Other less well-attested phenomena that were described include the classroom door banging open after Virginia had been sent out and shutting it behind her, an apple also floating out of a fruit bowl, and a shaving brush flying around the bathroom. Various household items would disappear only to return at a later date, and ornaments would move of their own accord. Displaced objects, coloured writing appearing briefly on the girls' faces, Virginia's lips turning bright red. The girls also reported feeling being poked. Stop it! On the torso or legs, pinched or nipped while lying in bed.
The case was investigated by A.R.G. Owen, a mathematician and parapsychologist, who interviewed all the witnesses. The Campbells appeared to be well-adjusted people, and the atmosphere of their home seemed to be a stable, normal one. The phenomena were determined to be paranormal. Other incidents occurred that seemed less reliable. Trickery on the part of Virginia. The other children or adults were ruled out. Also, there were no geophysical conditions such as earth tremors, tidal action, or the movement of underground water that could have accounted for the phenomena. Finally, the movements of objects were not due to any temporary states of weightlessness, as had been theorized might happen in atmospheric drafts.
Discarnate beings were eliminated as a possible cause, for none had manifested during Virginia's trances, or had indeed communicated with the knockings. None of the witnesses sensed anything malign present. In fact, the phenomena had been awe-inspiring, but not frightening. And Virginia had never complained about being possessed or harassed by unseen agents.
The most likely cause was Virginia herself. Her rapid pubescence may have generated the energy to create poltergeist forces. These forces may also have been exacerbated by repressed homesickness, shyness, and feelings of alienation. She may have been extremely self-conscious about her physical changes, which may explain the violent eruption of knockings on the occasions when Margaret was instructed to get back into bed with her. The trances, which were not comparable to mediumistic trances, did give evidence of emotional upset. Finally, the entire episode may have been in part an attention-getting device. Interesting.
Very.
It's like we're sort of saying at the start of it, it is focused on that one individual, on Virginia. And she's got all the sort of the classic traits of what they say these poltergeist hauntings relate to. Prepubescent or pubescent girl going through a difficult time.
That's exactly what I was going to say. What I find really interesting about this is the fact that she lost her dog, she lost her friends, her best friend.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden this starts happening.
Yeah.
Could it, I'm going to be devil's advocate here.
Go on.
Could it have been the fact that she needed something in her life to replace the loss, so she was creating an episode to get attention?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was just saying again, it's about that. Is it, for want of a better phrase, a tulpa that she created herself?
Indeed.
Or her own sort of anxiety and upset was then thrown out as some kind of, for want of a better phrase, electromagnetic force or telekinetic or psychokinetic energy that made all these things happen.
This is where we need Kieran.
This is where it's interesting, isn't it? You see, so because doing the research for this, I'd read elsewhere that there are other people that threw this theory out, saying it isn't that. But then all of a sudden you start looking at it thinking it fits.
It does. It really does.
So is it a haunting, or is it something that these people that it focus on have generated themselves?
I am interested in telekinesis, and I really would like some more information on that.
That is.
Scientifically about telekinesis and what the results are for this and the background behind this.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a good story to chat. I mean, it's a lot more involved in this. I've sort of condensed it to try and fit it into the podcast episode, but it's a really, really interesting case. There's an awful lot of information about it. Also, I was reading, I think it was the Alloa Echo, I think it was the newspaper, and someone had written about this, and they were saying that other people that moved into that property had similar experiences. In fact, that whole street
That's interesting.
was wrought with all these sort of weird experiences of events happening along that street.
So then are we looking at the Earth's natural forces, perhaps, that could have induced some kind of experiences?
Was there something there?
If it was the entire street?
Yeah.
You know, could it have been... I mean, there's been, as Dr. Akifa said previously, there's been experiences with people when they've been inhaling mold and things like that.
Yeah.
Could
there be something
it makes me wonder if it was the whole street.
Yeah,
it makes me wonder whether something else was at play.
But the other thing you have to consider as well is throwing in
Hang on a minute.
devil's advocate again.
I'm the psychic. I shouldn't be saying this stuff.
I know you shouldn't be saying this stuff, but
yeah,
the other thing to consider, of course, is it's a well-known story.
True.
It's advertised in the paper. It was covered extensively in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Could there not be an element of priming involved, and other people down that street read the things and decided that they wanted spooky experiences themselves?
That's a good point, actually.
So yeah, it's the things that you could throw at it, which is why you sort of think, okay, what could it be?
Exactly. What do you guys think?
Food for thought, everybody.
Let us know.
Indeed, yes, we'd love to hear from you. Now, time goes on. We do have another little local one.
This one is closer to home, isn't it?
It is. It's actually from Norwich. Okay, it's another little poltergeist case. And I've stolen it from the Eastern Daily Press. And this was shared by the two wonderful ladies from Weird Norfolk, who used to write some absolutely wonderful things in the newspaper until the newspaper decided to stop. But they do have their own sort of Norfolk folklore and Weird Norfolk site now, and they do podcasts about it, but we've stolen their story and I'm shamelessly stealing it from them, but it is an interesting little story. So here we go. This is the Mousehold Street Poltergeist. They were an ordinary family in an ordinary house in an ordinary street, but what happened behind closed doors was absolutely extraordinary. Norwich City Council's housing department was used to receiving requests from its tenants to move to another area, but the very unusual reason for wanting to leave caused a few eyebrows to raise. There was, claimed the family in question, an unwanted lodger at the city property, a resident poltergeist. In the summer of 1958, a couple appealed to their housing officer, begging to leave the council house they shared with their two children at 93 Mousehold Street, due to the presence of a spirit which was plaguing them day and night and was unconcerned by religious paraphernalia, such as the crucifix on the front room mantelpiece.
Strange things have been happening at number 93, said a report in the Eastern Daily Press on July the 2nd, 1958. Panes of glass have broken to a set pattern. Stones and bricks have been flung across rooms. A tin of polish has come through the ceiling. Clocks and watches have been found in unusual places. All these things have happened in the last fortnight. After sleepless nights and days of worry, the couple contacted the Reverend S. Long, vicar of nearby St. James's the Less Church, and he blessed the house and the family. The children's mother explained the troubles had started 2 weeks previously when she found a watch in an unaccustomed place and then a clock at the foot of the stairs. 7 window panes were smashed in the sitting room, and the stones that broke them were hot to the touch. She and her husband reported seeing branch-like shadows inside their home. Doors banged at night, and sometimes the mother of the house heard a noise as if a baby were crying. She later reported she had previously felt as if she were being strangled by an invisible force. Mr. Long visited the house 3 times, and while he was blessing the house, its rooms, and the family, a stone fell near his feet. But despite the blessing, the family were unwilling to stay in a house that they felt they were sharing with a malevolent presence, and took up the vicar's offer to stay in the parish hall.
Before the family left for their temporary residence, and just before a violent thunderstorm, 4 stones appeared to hurtle through the ceiling at 93 Mousehold Street. With a reporter in tow, the husband took the brave reporter into a bedroom where he claimed he could normally feel the presence at its strongest. It felt less intense. "I hope you strangers have driven away," he told the reporter, who was spending part of the night in the house along with a colleague and reporters from Fleet Street. The reporters heard clicks in the house which are said to precede stone showers, but nothing else manifested, and the family returned the next night, assured of continued company. In the following days, the police visited the house and later declared the matter satisfactorily cleaned up.
But the poltergeist was of sufficient interest to 2 members of the Cambridge University Society for Psychic Research, who travelled to Norwich to investigate this further. Anthony Cornell, a parapsychologist and prominent ghost investigator, and Alan Gould, who wrote a book about poltergeists. No results were ever made public. Now, number 93 Mousehold Street is long since demolished, replaced by modern housing, but the mystery still hangs in the air even after the police claimed the troubling issue of the so-called haunted house had been resolved, the implication being that a prankster had been responsible. The husband claimed the spirit was still active.
A final report notes, when seen at his home on Thursday night by a reporter, he said that only the previous night buttons had been torn off his jacket while it was hanging up. There we go.
Wow.
No children involved.
No, that's interesting.
No
isn't it?
focus. You know what I'm going to say now, though, don't you?
Yeah.
We had one like this where we spoke to some people who were in a housing authority property.
Yep.
And they didn't want to be in the property they were in, but we think they made the haunting up to actually get them moved out of the property.
Well, yeah.
So it makes you wonder whether or not this is another case where...
Quite possibly.
Yeah. But it's interesting, as a poltergeist case, it does have some of the similarities.
Oh, yeah.
You know, some of the things that do happen, but it hasn't got all of them.
Exactly.
So it doesn't start with a few noises and then build up. It immediately goes into objects being moved or objects being relocated, apports and disapports, as they're called, and then stones being thrown.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's all it really consists of. So poltergeist or just a haunting?
A haunting.
It's a haunting. It is indeed.
That's my theory on it.
There we go. So last but not least, we'll just finish off with a couple of like personal little experiences to sort of say that we know a few things about these things.
We do
So
indeed.
first off, I think, do you want to go with yours first?
Okay, shall I go with mine?
Go on then.
Alrighty. So, okay, I moved into a beautiful... Well, I was a child. My father moved us into a beautiful farmhouse when I was about sort of 5 years old. It was beautiful, but it had a history of hauntings. And it was on the coast in East Anglia. And my father was basically advised not to purchase the house because of previous poltergeist activity by the previous owners. Now, my dad didn't believe in any of this. You know, he thought it was a load of rubbish and mumbo jumbo
Yeah, I
and
can
all the
hear
rest
your
of
dad
it.
now. Yeah.
You know my
I
dad. You
your
know what
dad.
he's like.
I do
Oh, what a load
indeed.
of old crap, he would
Yeah.
have said. Right, okay. So, and, you know, the previous owners were keen to sell the house. Dad bought the property and we all moved in. And the previous owners claimed things like doors would slam, things would fly off shelves, taps would turn on and off by themselves. You know, there's a lot of claimed poltergeist activity in this house. But for us, when we moved in, and there was myself, I was probably about 5 years old, and my sister, who was a little baby, who came back to the house after being born. It was a very, very different energy. Now, as I've written, you know, online before, I was about 5 years old when I had my first real paranormal experience. And now the energy in the house, I believe, was at peace with children being around. And after we moved in, interestingly, there was no poltergeist experiences at all. But it was more of a kind of protective force. So I'll give you an example. Now, my mum, when I was growing up, was quite strict with me, especially with sweeties. I wasn't allowed sweeties during the week. And so I decided, because I noticed, you know, we had a big walk-in pantry in the kitchen, and she used to hide Mars bars and Snickers, you know, the fun size little ones. She used to hide them at the top of the pantry, at the top shelf, walk-in pantry. And so I thought, in my infinite wisdom as a 5 or 6 year old, I was going to help myself. There was nobody around to stop me. So, you know, the cool 1960s breakfast bar stools, you remember those,
I remember
right?
those very well,
The
yes.
tall wicker ones,
Yeah.
you know, with the wicker seat.
Yep.
We had those. I thought, you know, this was back in the 70s then, I was going to help myself. No one around. I was going to thieve. So I grabbed one of these tall wicker stools and I dragged it into the pantry, and I climbed up this stool, and I was on my tippy toes, reaching up, trying to steal a naughty snack. And I lost my balance and I fell off the stool. Now, what should have happened on that particular occasion, I should have cracked my head on one of the wooden shelves that was there, or I should have fallen to the ground and cracked my head on the concrete floor. What actually happened to me on that particular occasion was completely different. I was placed on the floor. Now, unlike Nigel's previous example of Castle Rising Castle in King's Lynn, where you felt...
Yeah, I felt something actually physically push me.
I felt nothing.
All right.
It was almost for me like time had completely slowed down and I was gently placed on the floor. I didn't feel hands touching me. I felt nothing like that, but I was placed on the floor. And it's really hard for me to explain.
Yeah,
and
because you should, like you said, you should have gone whack, bang on the floor.
I should have done.
Yeah.
I should have done, because I fell backwards off that stool.
Yeah.
And I should have cracked my head open or smacked it on the wooden floor, or on the concrete floor, or hit it on a wooden shelf.
Yeah.
But that did not happen. That was the weirdest thing. Now, I've written about a separate paranormal occurrence that happened to me in that house when I was a child.
Yeah, it's on our Substack, and it's on the blog on the website if you want to read it.
Exactly, about what I witnessed.
Yeah.
A ghost, I believe, was a ghost I witnessed when I was a child, my first sighting. Now, this particular lady that I believe I saw as a child lost an infant.
Yeah.
Because there was a cot that I saw in the room with her crying. And if you want to find out more, please do read my blog about it. You did some research into that property, didn't you?
I did, yes.
And what did you find?
I found out that in that property there had been a family living there that had had a number of children that had died in childhood, very young.
And when I believed that I had my first paranormal experience as a child, I saw a woman crying with a cot next to her.
Yeah.
And when I walked into the room, she looked at me and she faded away.
Yeah.
Now, I believe this is not poltergeist activity in that house.
No.
I believe she lost a child and she was protecting children in that house. Now, my theory was the previous owners of that property, they didn't have children.
No, which is why they got the other activity.
I think she wasn't comfortable. I think she wanted children in that house.
Yeah.
Because she'd lost her own. And I think she felt lonely and bereaved, and the spirit, whatever, that was left in that property needed or wanted children.
Yeah.
Because as soon as we moved in, young children, there was no activity at all.
No.
The only thing we heard her crying and mourning the loss of her own child, but she protected us in that house as children.
Yeah.
And that's the weirdest experience I can remember as a child. But do you know what? I didn't feel any fear. When I saw her, I felt no fear. There was no fear at all.
No, it's not the kind of thing that would generate that, is it? That's the thing. It's more
Well,
of
I
a...
don't know. As an adult,
Yeah.
you would feel fear. If you walked into a room and you saw a woman that you knew wasn't supposed to be there in a room, as an adult, fight or flight response, psychology would kick in.
Yeah.
You'd panic.
I
You'd
would
think, what the hell
freak
is
out,
that?
yes.
I think as children, because we haven't got that knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't bother me at all. I wasn't afraid at all. There was no kind of fear there at all.
Right.
Which is quite unusual. I just acknowledged it. I was like, okay, there's a lady there. And you know, I looked at her, she looked at me, she actually noticed me, she looked straight at me, which was interesting.
Yeah.
It wasn't residual. Well, it could have been, I suppose.
No, because it was interaction.
But she didn't communicate with me. She didn't speak to me.
No.
But she knew I was in the room and
Yeah.
she looked straight at me. Whether or not it was residual and it was a replaying of somebody else that had walked in the room,
Yeah.
possible. But I felt at the time she looked straight at me, and as she looked at me, she faded away. I didn't feel any fear. I just went back to my bed.
Yeah.
And I went to sleep.
Mm.
As an adult,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done that.
You would have been like, oh my God, where's he
Probably
gone?
would have crapped my pants.
He's going to appear again somewhere.
You know, but this is the thing. I think, based on my experience of possible poltergeist activity, I agree with Dr. O'Keefe.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's haunting. I don't think we should label as a poltergeist. I think it's to do with a haunting of a spirit, and depending on how the spirit in that location is feeling, it's a response from that spirit.
Yeah.
I don't think it's poltergeist activity. That's just my view based on my experience.
Yeah.
But your bro,
My brother Phil, yes.
your bro Phil, tell us about his experience.
Well, I asked Phil because I remember this. I remember this happening to me when he was younger. And so I dropped a message saying, hey, Phil, can you remember what happened? This is in my mum and dad's bungalow. And he said, well, things kept getting moved of their own accord and electrical stuff kept coming on with no assistance from me. Like the telly would just come and activate and come on of its own accord. And I know his hi-fi used to come on as well.
Really?
And play music. Yeah, it's really weird. Really weird. He had some electric remote controlled cars that would sometimes start up and move along the floor. He did it once when his friend Grant was there, and they actually watched his thing scoot across the floor and just slam.
Okay,
into the skirting
devil's
boards.
advocate.
Yeah.
Could it have been a power surge?
It could have been, but then
Okay.
again, who would have turned it on?
Good point.
You know, it's like if you have a remote control, it's got the handheld box that controls it.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, I mean, it could have been faulty electrics.
Yeah, but even if it was with Scalextrics, I can't even pronounce it. Scalextric.
Scalextrics.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You have to have that controller,
You have to
and you
press
have
the
to
thing.
push
Yeah.
it for it to actually work.
Yeah.
So even with a power surge, that probably wouldn't have triggered.
Yeah, he had CDs that were stacked up were thrown on the floor.
Did he witness them being thrown
Saw
on the
them,
floor?
yeah. Saw them actually fall on the floor. Yeah.
Interesting.
Then again, it could have been the same again if it's something that's on an uneven surface, or there's a road outside Mum and Dad's bungalow. It could have been something going along the road that made it vibrate.
But did they just fall, or were they thrown across?
No, they actually fell some distance from.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't if they
So it was like force was pushing them
exactly.
onto
Yeah,
it.
they'd
That's
gone
interesting.
some distance and then dropped.
Okay.
You know, and he said it all started when Dad was doing repairs to the bungalow. He's doing something in the bathroom, and flooring and boards were being lifted up.
Okay, I've got to interject here. I've got to interject here because spirit seems to not like change.
Yeah.
We know that. And there's a lot of cases where if there's any renovations or anything like that in a property, things start to happen.
Yeah, they'll show their discontent. They
Indeed.
don't like it.
Yep.
Yes. I did ask him if he could remember hearing any noises, because I thought if he'd heard noises prior to that,
Yeah.
then could it have been? Because obviously you've got objects being moved. And he said he heard strange noises like movement and creaking, but then again, it's an old bungalow.
Okay.
So you could put that down to just floorboards and things,
Yeah,
but he
yeah.
had heard footsteps.
Really?
Yes, he had.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And he always feels there's a presence in there. Someone was there, but he couldn't see them. And he said he feels it the most in my mum's bedroom and in the room that he had. It's his bedroom.
Okay. that's
Now, it's weird
interesting.
because my brother David and my brother Colin, they both say they can feel something in the bungalow as well. David's actually heard something moving around in the conservatory, and out of the corner of his eye, he saw something moving in there. But I never get freaked by it.
Okay, can I ask you, is that the property your mum's in now?
Yes, the one that you've actually been round there.
Because there is something there.
Shh, don't tell my mum.
I won't.
That's all right, because she won't listen to the podcast.
But it's not anything unpleasant.
We said that, didn't we, when you were there? You just
I
got
did.
a good feeling when you were there.
Absolutely
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's the same place.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you see, there's elements in Phil's story of possible poltergeist activity, objects moving, funny noises, a sense
Yeah.
of presence. You know, and I did say to him, "Did you have any unusual people round? Like, was there a young lady you were with at the time?"
Or were you puffing something?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
having a bit of a smoke.
Yeah, but
You
he
know.
said no. It was just like it just
Okay.
started,
Okay.
and he was like past the sort of age where you would think it would happen.
Hmm.
You know, so yeah, really, really strange.
And he's not the kind of guy that would make anything up.
No,
as
he
well.
isn't, no,
he's
no.
really straight down the
He's
line. isn't
straight
he?
down the line. Yeah, yeah. He
Yeah.
wouldn't make it up.
No
you know.
way. No
Yeah.
way.
So really, really odd. So we've had a couple of personal experiences, but of course, we'd now like to throw it over to you.
Yes, please. So, guys and gals, if you have any experiences of what you believe is poltergeist activity, do please message us and let us know, because, you know, perhaps we would like to use them in a future podcast as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're even quite happy. We can set it
Yeah.
up if you want to come on
Oh,
and tell your own
that's even
story.
better.
We're more than happy to set up, because we've got
yeah.
the facility to be able to set up and record you telling your
Fabby.
stories if you want to.
Yes,
And we'd love to do that. You
that would
know.
be awesome.
If you want to contact us, you can email us on, and I know this one off by heart now, out there group, all one word, at iCloud.com. So it's out there group at iCloud.com. And we quite enjoyed telling you the couple of little poltergeist stories we had today.
Yeah.
And in the process of researching for this, I found an awful lot more. So would you like us further down the line to tell you some more poltergeist stories?
There's loads of them out there.
There certainly is. And
There's quite a lot.
we're going to take more unusual, rather than sort of run through the run-of-the-mill ones that people know, like Enfield and Battersea. There's some really good weird and wonderful ones.
Mm.
There's the Bromley poltergeist, which is one I thought about telling today, where weird things happen in the potting shed.
Don't tell all our
'em.
secrets.
No. And there's a weird one from Germany as well.
There is.
There is.
Shush
I
now.
know. Shh.
Shush. Shh. Secrets.
Yes.
Yes.
But in the meantime, that is our poltergeist tales done. And we would like to hear your opinions. We really would like to hear what you think. Because if you agree along the same lines as myself and Juliet and Mr. O'Keefe as well, sorry, Dr. O'Keefe, then, you know, let us know if you think it is just an unusual kind of haunting, or if you agree with the idea that it's something to do with telekinesis and young ladies going through puberty, for want of a better explanation, then, you know, tell us, because we'd love to hear it, because we're always interested in your opinions.
But I have a question.
Go on in.
Why is it predominantly young ladies going through puberty? And because men or young boys go through puberty in a different way, why is it just focused on the female and not the male?
Do you know what? I honestly don't know. I wonder whether it's not because this is going to go. You've done it now, haven't you? Because here we go, deep dive into
I know,
weirdness.
down the rabbit hole, down we go.
It's I've forgotten what the phrase is now, but back in the day, because like
Yeah.
females were worshipped.
Yes, true.
As the mother goddess,
Correct.
and it was important
yeah.
that, you know, they were seen as the giver of life, the carrier of life.
Absolutely.
You know, they are that vessel that carries the child. So there's strong emotional and religious attachment to that. So could that be part and parcel of the energy building that when you're in that age where you're becoming to the point where you're going to start your monthlies, for want of a better phrase?
I hear you, but would the average teenage girl be aware of that?
No.
Exactly.
But
so why is the emphasis all on the female and not the male? Because men go through changes as well.
Yes, but is it because, as what's trying to get at, is it the fact that the female actually gives birth to something? So is it the fact that the female's actually giving birth to the energy that creates the poltergeist?
Possibly. I don't know.
That was a weird twist, wasn't it? Where the hell did that come from, Nige?
I don't know. I need to know more about this. Mr. O'Keefe.
Back at him again.
Yeah.
Picking on poor Kieran.
Yeah, we need you here. We need your advice.
Yeah. Or anybody, in fact, you know, that
exactly.
Any sort of parapsychologists out there that want to talk about this sort of stuff, then we'd love to have you on.
Because there's got to be some form of science behind this.
Yeah.
I don't believe personally it's going to be to do with gender.
No.
I think if something's going to be happening, I think it's going to be to both male and female. However, a lot of these cases seem to be young females.
Yeah.
But a lot of these cases also seem to be young females with troubles.
Yes.
So it makes me wonder whether, as a result of their troubles, these things are being perhaps created.
Yeah.
To make them feel better, to get the attention, loss of people, loss of pets, all of a sudden we're lonely. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Makes me wonder.
We're going to generate this.
Just putting it out there. Just putting it out. I shouldn't be saying this because I'm the blooming psychic.
I know, but then again, it does make sense, because if you can generate that energy, because we're often wondering about how the hell you manage to sort of pick up on these things.
I wish I knew.
Is there some kind of energy that you can use?
Yeah, I'm still waiting to get somebody to tell me exactly how I do what I do, because I do not know.
No.
And I would like to know. I really would like to know, because I honestly don't. And I've been tested time and time again.
Yeah.
And I've come out with results.
I know.
And where
did they come from?
How? I don't know.
And how do you do it?
I don't know.
I know.
Well, you've been there. You know what I do.
I've seen it.
This is what I mean.
I can't explain it.
No.
No.
I know.
And I'm like, well, I don't like this because I don't like when I can't explain it. When I can't come up with some kind of valid explanation for it, you know.
But it's like when we've been to ghost airfields and things like that, and I've come out with stuff that there's no way.
You wouldn't have known it.
No.
I mean, I had to really some of them I really dug deep to get the information. And I'm like, how did you know that?
I don't know.
I mean, coming out of something as
there's
random
got to
as
be science
standing in the
behind
middle of a
this.
bloody airfield and you're saying to me, there's someone speaking to me in Russian. I'm like, well, this is an American airbase. Why would they be speaking Russian? Because they had that bloody mission to Russia where they lost a load of their planes. I mean, you wouldn't have known that.
No.
Because you didn't even know the name of the airbase when you said it's some place down the road from me, but I don't know where it is, and I had to go and find it and do all the research. You didn't have a clue.
Yeah, but I can't research it if I'm being.
Well, no, you don't look. But I was going to say, but
No.
you don't tend to anyway. You're interested
No.
in that side of things, but you don't do the deep diving that I do.
No, I
to
can't.
pull the information
I can't
out.
because
You don't.
there's no way I can.
No.
There's no way I
So
can.
yeah, where did it come from?
There's got to be a reason.
Yeah.
Sometime I think science will catch up eventually, and it will start giving people like me the answers that we crave, and we really do, because I've got kind of the spiritual side of me and the scientific side of me, and they're not matching up at the moment.
No.
And they need to be.
Makes it very difficult.
Yeah.
And on that note, it's time for us to disappear off into
I know,
the night.
it's getting late, isn't
It's
it?
getting very late. So, there you go. Poltergeists, our very strange opinion, and we hope that you agree with us.
Let us know your stories. We'd love to hear them.
Indeed. And until then, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from me.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.